Jerry Dunaway, the owner of the hooker at the time, had a Hatteras, and once he sold a Hatteras, he decided he wanted a custom boat, and he went to Destin, Florida, where GNS boats were built, and he decided to build a 48 GNS, figured that was a perfect fishing boat. And we started building that boat in the middle of 1984. The boat was finished in July of 1985. And it was the perfect sport fishing boat at the time, with one room dedicated to the tackle only. The forward stateroom was not a stateroom. It held all the fin oars and all the Shimanos and a whole bunch of spare tackle, with no air conditioning in that room because of the sensitive drag washers of a fin oar reel back then. So the other two staterooms were for the owner and the crew, and with a salon and Cummins, nice quiet Cummins engine, it was a perfect fishing boat at the time. The layout, the design, Peter Wright was involved a little bit, myself in the design, and it came out to be just awesome, awesome boat. When you try to build the best sport fishing boat you can, there's a lot of things you got to take into consideration. Fishability, maneuverability, but then again, you need the length for the accommodations and then for the travel to get to the places like St. Thomas, Venezuela, Panama. Those were the spots back in the 80s that we primarily wanted to fish. So you had to have the fuel to get there. But then again, when you got to the fishing part, you want the maneuverability. So maybe a 37-foot boat might be better for the maneuverability, but at the same time, you're not going to be able to travel as far and be as comfortable. So we had to have all those things taken into consideration. Then we planned on fishing light tackle, 2 pound, 4 pounds, 8 pound test, 12 pound test line for billfish, which was unheard of back in those days. The IGFA had opened some new categories, and a lot of the categories were vacant, and a lot of them already had some fish being caught. So to go be able to attempt to catch these fish on such light tackle really was not even being, there wasn't that much competition for those records, because it was definitely impossible at the time. And to be able to go to those places and to catch fish like that on light tackle, we needed that maneuverability in the boat. Now, the hooker wasn't the fastest boat backing down. When we built one later in life, a different boat we built, that boat was really built to go down back very fast. But in reality, the hooker backed up plenty fast. The hooker backed up fast enough. I mean, to catch 87 world records, the boat had to be doing something right, besides the crew, the anglers, and the dedication it took to be able to do that. I was there for the build of the hooker, especially for the last 4 or 5 months, the important parts. And right away, we went down to St. Thomas and Venezuela and started going to all these hot spots in '86, where we caught many of the records in Tropic Star Lodge. And I was on the boat until 1990. And then I got off the boat due to some personal reasons. And then Captain Trevor Cockle took over, and he took it to some crazy places. They towed it to Ascension Island. They towed it to the Azores, towed it back and forth from the Pacific. It was crazy what they did with the boat for many years. And after that, the boat went to a couple different people, had owned it, and it was fishing primarily out of Panama on the Pacific side. I bought the boat in 2016, and I called it giving a hooker a facelift, and brought her back to life, and then fished it out of Panama and Costa Rica for 4.5, 5 years there. And it was just incredible to bring that boat back to life and to fish again, because I never thought I would see it again after getting off the boat. So was I in there a short time? Yes. But she was special from the very beginning. I think when I got off the boat, we had 30 world records, 40 world records, most of them all billfish. So it was pretty incredible. And then for Trevor to catch the records afterwards, it was still just record-breaking. Jerry Dunaway went out to Australia to fish with Peter Wright, and he saw a boat called the Hooker fishing over there on the Great Barrier Reef. And Jerry got back and he bought a 53 Hatteras, and he wanted to name it the Hooker. He just loved the name and what it meant, and even the girl emblem. And Jerry called up the owner of the boat out in Australia and asked him if he could use the name. And the guy said, "Thank you very much. I don't think you have to call and ask permission, but yeah, you're welcome to use it." So Jerry named the 53 Hatteras his first big boat, the Hooker. And since then it carried on, especially with the girl emblem. He ended up having the emblem trademarked at one time. And she became a legend. I mean, a lot to do with the Hooker. You really got to go back to, its early beginnings when Marlin Magazine came of age. And we were fishing tournaments and winning tournaments. And then we started record fishing on the different boats we had in the early 80s. And we got a lot of publicity, and she became a legend right away. Where she was going next and the traveling the boat went to, I mean, we took that boat to so many different countries, from St. Thomas to Venezuela to Panama, and then Texas, Bahamas. And then when we got the Madam, we could go anywhere. We went to Peru, Ecuador, Tahiti, Australia, Hawaii, the west coast of Africa, the Ivory Coast, Senegal. One of the first boats to go really fish Cape Verde Islands for a long time. It was incredible the places we got to go and see, and the places that boat got to go fish on her own bottom. It's crazy the opportunities and places we went. The most memorable day, I'd have to put a plural on there. There was so many great days that we got to fish on that boat. Of course, Australia being one of the best places to fish in the world for big fish, which of course, Mr. Dunaway always wanted to catch a grander, and he did catch his grander there. And to see him that happy. But one of the happiest days I ever saw Jerry was in Venezuela. We caught the first blue marlin ever on 8-pound. And the smile on his face is burned in my memory for many years. It was incredible. So we had many good times. And then in Panama, catching 4 world record swordfish in 1 week. We caught like 28 in 10 days fishing off the Tropic Star, but 4 world records. This was incredible. We only killed 4. All 4 were world records. They beat other records. It was crazy. So there was so many great memories on that boat that you just can't pin it down to one day. But Australia and Venezuela were 2 of the best I've ever seen Mr. Dunaway so happy, and he deserved it. And then you got Deborah Dunaway catching all of her records. And to this day, she's the only person, fisherman, male or female, to ever have caught all 9 species of billfish. That's not, other people have done that, but all 9 were a world record at one time. Some have been broken by now, but to hold a world record in every billfish class was incredible. And most of those fish were caught on that boat, all but I think the spearfish was caught in Hawaii on another boat, but all the rest were on the Hooker. The reason I sold the boat was between COVID, keeping the boat locked down for a year, and I still had planned on fishing that boat till I was a little bit older than I am now, like another 5 years. And then David Salazar came and asked me if I wanted to sell the boat. They wanted to start an operation in Capos. And I just thought that was the right guy to sell it to. I said, man, it's not what I really want to do, but he wants to keep the boat. He told me I could still run trips on the boat. And to know that that boat would be able to fish so many different people with his amount of people that go to the lodge, to be able to share that boat with so many people, to me, made more sense. So I thought that was the best person if I ever was going to sell it. I had many offers before, but they just weren't the right people, and I wasn't ready to sell. And knowing that David was going to be able to share this boat with so many people, I said, man, I think this is the right person to sell it to. I wasn't ready. And I had other offers I turned down just because to be a private boat again I don't think that's what she should be. So it was just a great opportunity to sell to a great person, great family, a great team. So it was like, no, I think this is the right decision. And since I sold it, I just ran a bunch of trips down it and out to the fads and caught a bunch more blue marlin, and she's as sweet as ever. Do I miss not having the hooker? Hell yeah. That boat, man, I'll tell you what, like I said, I just got done doing trips on the boat, and every time I'd put the boat on a plane and every time we'd hook a fish and every time I go backwards with that boat, man, it's the memories and the feeling I get on that boat are just, you just can't imagine. So hell yes, I miss that boat. But at the same time, I'm glad to see David and his family with that boat to share with other people, and then I can still run some trips on it. So I won't be missing it that much. I'll still get the fish. I never got to fish many celebrities on the boat. We were at a special time in sport fishing where we had just a few charters that would use the boat in between when Dunaway wasn't using it. So it wasn't like we were, we had a lot of people that wanted to come record fish on the boat. Dick and Mark Love would come fish on it. Don Tyson, he caught, his guests caught world records on the boat, Chicken Man there. But they would come and take a week or 10 days everywhere we went. Everybody was so excited to come fish. So we didn't really get the celebrities on there. Henry Roussel, a Frenchman from France, he would come over and book a trip everywhere we went. Mark Gerard, a great angler who taught me a lot about light tackle fishing. He would come over from France and fish with us. But we never really had the celebrities that you'd think on the boat back in those days. It was just really hardcore. A lot of people wanting to learn light tackle fishing or were really just already good at light tackle fishing. So most of our charters were just people you really hardly heard of. The IGFA here would have heard of them, of course, but we never got into that group where those type of people wanted to come fish these crazy places we went to. Well, the records I was involved with were a lot of first, I should say, whether they were the first white marlin caught on 2-pound test or the first blue marlin ever caught on 4-pound test. I mean, we must have, I don't know how many we lost, but it was way too many, but it was a learning experience from each one. But when we first caught like an 82-pounder, I think it was 82 on 4-pound in the Cape Verde Islands, I thought that record would last forever. Someone caught a 500-pounder on 4-pound test in the Azores and broke our record. But some records we caught I never thought would be broken. And then of course the swordfish we caught on light tackle, 109 on 8-pound for Jerry. I mean, just incredible fight and incredible catches. The most outstanding one is Marg Love caught a 162-pound blue marlin in Capos on 4-pound line. And that was probably the best fight. It was 9.5 hours. We caught the fish in the dark. There was no trick fishing to it. We just didn't, people think a lot of the records are trick fishing where you hook the fish, back up and gaff them. 9.5 hours, lots of line off the reel, lots of jumps. That fight was incredible. I never thought we'd catch that fish just because of the jumping it did. I do have a video of that one. It's crazy that the line didn't break. And of course the line tested at 4-pound test. That was one incredible catch. Deborah Dunaway, a 280 on 8-pound is still a record black marlin that we caught in January 1987. That record still stands. Incredible fight. The fish bit the bait 2 or 3 times before it got hooked. It was like it would bite the bait and then come off and then came back and bit again. It was crazy. And that record still stands. And then we caught Mark Gerard broke Dunaway's record on 8-pound. And I felt bad about that. Here, guest broke Jerry's first man to ever catch a blue marlin on 8-pound in the Atlantic. And then one of the guests comes down, Mark Gerard, and breaks it. Then we go over to Ivory Coast and Jerry catches another one 8-pound to break it again. And it went back and forth. And then Stuart Campbell's come along breaking the records. It was crazy, the competition we had back then. But there's so many fights, 12 and a half hours we fought fish. We fought a fish, a black marlin, and ended up losing it after 16 and a half hours in Australia. So we had many long battles. Some we won, some we lost, but so many records that we have. I've been involved in 49 world records here, and most of them built fish, most of them on the hooker, and another GNS boat we built later, but just incredible opportunities and incredible catches. Really, I mean, like I said, it wasn't trick fishing. It was time put in and great anglers be able to back the drag off at the right time, put the pressure on, feel everything, and then great crew, great deckhands to be able to wire fish and gaff fish like that. Yep, we video a lot of the catches on the hooker. We have plenty of video on there, not just for proof of the records, but just for the memories. And you know, when I watch those films to this day, it's crazy. When I first got the hooker back, and we hooked a fish on one of the first trips out the FAD, all of a sudden it got dark, and all of a sudden I got the worst case of deja vu, like we were catching a world record all over again with the lights on, and you know, the angler in the dark and the bright yellow line, and it was like, oh my gosh, here 20-something years later, I thought it was like the next day. So getting on the boat, it was incredible. And when I was fixing the boat up, it was so crazy. I could still hear the carpenters tell me, Skip, one day you're gonna have to take this apart. You know, and the guys, the carpenters that built the boat, they were talking to me at night, you know, telling me what to do, the things they taught me while we were building the boat. It was so crazy, the memories I got on that boat, all the way from the forward room that now has air conditioning where the tackle used to be, all the way to the engine room. It's crazy. The engines are still pink again. When we built the boat, they asked me what color I wanted the engines. I told them pink. They didn't understand it. And when they asked me why, I said, because all the main gear on a hooker is pink. So anyway, everybody gets a chuckle out of that, but the engines are pink again. So anytime I go anywhere in that boat, it brings me back to Destin, Florida, brings me back to Jerry Dunaway, Deborah, many different countries. I think being able to fish on the hooker, if you've never been on it, it's just like me coming into IDFA and picking up Hemingway's rod. People want to go on that legend, say they were part of it, say they got the ride on it, or catch a fish on it, or drive it, whatever it may be. We just like that nostalgia in our lives. You know, people buy old cars because of, you know, prior owners or other boats, and to be able to go on the hooker and to know that you were on a true legend, a boat that's been all over the world. It caught multiple records, caught multiple granders, 1,300-pound marlin, you know, 1,000-pound black marlin. To know that you've set foot on something sacred like that is so special to so many people. Everybody has fished with me since. At the same time, they get on the boat and they go, wow, I'm on the hooker. You know, I got to catch fish on the hooker. I got to catch 20 blue marlin in one day on the hooker. It's crazy that she still performs like that, and you get that feeling that you've been part of history and, you know, part of a legend. Nothing really, you know, I wrote a book about my years on the hooker, involved, and it's out there with many great stories, you know, from the stories that aren't just world record catches. In Peru, when we got threatened by the Shining Path that we'd all be dead because we brought these American boats down to Peru. Shining Path was a revolutionary group down there in Peru, and we packed up overnight, and I was gone the next day. They weren't going to get me, but we had done a TV show, and they called the port captain and said they were going to kill us all by the next morning. And there's stories like that that aren't fish stories, but that go along with that, and getting rolled over in the surf in a little boat and almost getting killed, and the diving we got to do on the boat was incredible. I mean, all the other stuff you got to do, and the people we met in all the different countries with that boat, all the IGFA reps and people we had aboard for drinks. We met so many great people in so many countries. So there's many things behind the scenes that aren't just fishing that boat brings everybody together with. You know, these people see that boat and that girl, and there's other boats around the world now with a name, and they're taking the logo so you can see it other places. But she's left a hell of a good wake. That's all I can say.